Joining me this morning to discuss that very topic is Simon Calvert from the Be Reasonable campaign. Good morning, Simon.
Morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. And Anne Hughes, who is a board member on Children First. Hi, Anne.
Hi there.
What's your thoughts on this guidance, Simon, this morning that we're hearing about?
Well, I think it's going to be a colossal waste of police time and very damaging for families. I mean, let's not forget that when this bill was being pushed through Parliament, the MP whose bill it was said this isn't about criminalising anyone, it's about supporting parents. The Children's Minister, Marie Todd, told Parliament, I assure members that our intention is not to criminalise parents. And yet here we are, here's the guidance. If you see a parent physically punishing their child, you should call 999 to report a crime in progress. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who supported this smacking ban, actually, who will be pretty shocked when they see today's front pages to find out that this, in reality, is what a smacking ban means. But we always said this would be the reality. You can't change the criminal law and then expect the police not to enforce it. But what's the price going to be? I mean, if a mum taps her toddler on the bum, gets reported to police, she's sitting in a police interview room, finding herself being accused of child abuse. If the prosecution progresses, how is that going to affect her employment and her life chances? And more importantly, how is that going to affect the life chances of her kids? It's just an appalling situation. This law needs to be repealed. Sharpish.
Let me read out actually the guidelines here that have been issued by the Scottish Government and what's changing. This is the exact wording. If a parent or carer physically punishes or disciplines their child, they can be prosecuted with assault. Under the current law, depending on what happened, the defence of reasonable chastisement may be available to them. But this is going to change and remove the reasonable chastisement defence as of the 7th of November. Physical punishment or physical discipline can take many forms, and this is where it all gets very grey, doesn't it? Including smacking, scalping, spanking and slapping. This means that all forms of physical punishment of children will be against the law in Scotland, and children will have the same legal protection from assault as adults. So that's what it's going to mean. And the advice around calling 999, if you're going to compare it to an adult being assaulted, you wouldn't think twice about doing that. Let's bring into the conversation Anne Hughes, who's a board member on Children First, for your thoughts on this one, Anne.
Yeah, I think that there has to be some sort of a thought around any new law has to have guidance with it, and therefore the guidance says if you see a child in immediate danger, you should phone 999. Every law that has that has that round it, that you need to phone the police. I don't think there's any implication that ordinary decent mums and dads will become criminals. First of all, I would say if you're an ordinary and decent person, understand there is a new law, just the way we had to understand you have to put a seatbelt on in a car, you can't have a drink before you drive, you can't smoke inside a place. These are laws that have all come into place that ordinary, decent people have followed and have therefore not become criminalised. Let's not dumb down mums and dads and think they don't understand the law and therefore they're going to become criminals.
So are you in favour of this, Anne, or do you think it needs more work?
I don't think it needs more work. I think any implication that it should be repealed when there was 84 votes for it and 29 against is just a nonsense, and it's a bit of a waste of time and dialogue, quite honestly, that the law should be repealed. We're talking about protecting future generations here, and therefore I don't think that I would necessarily phone the police unless I've seen somebody actually assaulting their child. If I've seen a mum smacking her child on the bum, perhaps I would say, do you know that's illegal now? But what the point is, headlines like the headlines in the papers today aren't actually helpful. Can we not start to educate
hang about.
parents?
They're just quoting the guidance.
Yeah, but that guidance would exist if you have a cigarette inside, or if you have a pint and then get in your car, or if you drive.
No, it says dial 999 if you see a mum smacking a tot on the bum. That's outrageous. And as far as, 84 votes to whatever, the public opinion on this was always strongly against it. You always had 2/3 to 3/4 of the population who didn't want this. And those people are going to be outraged to find out that after all this guff, about not criminalising anyone, that criminalising is exactly what's going to happen. You can't have a criminal law and then pretend it's not going to be enforced. It will be enforced, and children and their families will pay the price. And for what purpose? Child abuse is already illegal. And you can and should do everything you can to protect children from abuse. But smacking a tot on the back of the legs or on the bum is not child abuse. It's what most of us as parents did. It's what most of our parents did. And the idea that that is now a matter for dialing 999, I think will be shocking to the sensibilities of most people.
The actual wording here that we're seeing is they're trying to give an example. So, for example, if you pull your child, fairly roughly, let's say, out of a busy road, as cars are coming, you're protecting them. If you smack your child afterwards, that's considered physically punishing them. And if we see somebody physically punishing their child, you should call 999 to report a crime in progress, or if a child or young person is in immediate danger. But you can it says that you can also call the police on 101 if you think a crime has been committed. So there is that option to go to that slightly lesser degree.
But some mums and dads make that judgment call that in order to teach a very small child who may not understand the significance, in order to help teach a small child an important lesson, that they do give them a tap on the bum. That's their judgment call. The idea that a handful of MSPs has now taken that judgment call out of their hands and put it in the hands of police, prosecutors and the courts is just fundamentally unjust.
It's not a handful, because 84 MSPs actually voted for it. And I think we always do. I always take the position that we do the best we can with what we know. We now join more than 50 other countries that have equal protection for their children. Our children do not deserve to be assaulted. And as a progressive country, we should be protecting them. If parents are ordinary, decent mums and dads, you get in line with what the new law is. There is no implication that they have to become criminals. They just have to abide by the law the way we do in all facets of our society.
Simon, can I ask you on a personal, what would you do then if you saw a child? Let's escalate it up from your example of a little tap on the bum to somebody who may perhaps got a scalp across the head or something like that, something with a bit more force, perhaps. What might you do yourself?
Well, you're changing the facts then to talk about if you think somebody's abusing their child, then you call the police.
But one person's little tap on the bum is another person's abuse, isn't it?
No, it isn't. And people can tell that's an outrageous thing to say. The idea that people can't tell the difference between child abuse and giving that kid a smack on the bum, that's shocking. Of course they can tell the difference. And and I understand where Anne is coming from, but I've looked at some of these laws in these other 50 countries, and I can tell you as a matter of fact that overwhelmingly they've not done what Scotland has done by making smacking a criminal offence. They've brought in administrative laws, they've brought in laws without any enforcement provisions, they've done all kinds of things. Scotland is almost unique in making an ordinary smack on the bum, a tap on the back of the hand, a criminal offence, a matter for the police and prosecutors. That's very different from what those other countries have done. And
we're just nearly out of time. Let me just give you an opportunity to respond there to Simon, and then I'll let you know what the official word is from the government on this.
Yeah, I think we are where we are. The laws change. We voted our politicians to put new laws in. I 100% back this law. I want to protect our future generations, and therefore we all have to just get in line with it the way we get in line with all the other laws.
Anne Hughes joining us this morning, board member on Children First. Also Simon Calvert from the Be Reasonable campaign.